Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing marvelously well. It is a Friday, and it is another Frequently Asked Questions Friday. That's a Fact Friday, and we're back in black.
How important is live recording if virtual instruments keep sounding better and better?
I love virtual instruments. Who doesn't? I'm a guitar player. I want to add some strings, and I don't have the budget, or at least I want to put the idea down of a string arrangement. I will play it. I will play it on a keyboard and trigger some virtual sounds. If I want to put in a basic drum groove, I'll play the drum groove in. It's great. Just play it on the keyboard. That is absolutely fantastic things. Virtual instruments are life-saving for getting ideas down and sometimes making into final productions. Do I think it's going to replace live stuff? Sure, if you want to make music that doesn't have all of the great things that live things have. It's just such a big question, really, because, the combination of live and virtual is wonderful in the right doses. And there's some music that's predominantly virtual instruments that also sounds great. It really is in the fingers and the ears of the creator. I personally love the idea of musicians getting together in a room and playing off each other. So much of the music that we talk about, that we feature in our songs that change music, or our albums or our artists, were artists in a room interacting. But a lot of the time they did record a drum track and then overdub some bass and then add some guitars. That happened all the time. That happened, with Soundgarden, with Michael Beinhorn. That's how he said they produced Black Hole Sun. And it doesn't take away from the fact that that is an absolutely incredible song and an amazing production. So it doesn't always have to be musicians interacting off each other, but musicians that play with feel. And feel is like, it's a very nebulous term, isn't it? But it's pushing and pulling groove, maybe laying back and being behind the beat, and then sometimes being more aggressive and on top and making it sound or feel more urgent. Drum fills that are sped up, like Keith Moon being super exciting, or John Bonham just laying that snare really, really late. These are things that human beings bring to it. And I suppose there will be more virtual instrument programming available where we can tell it to lay this back or play this kind of feel or this groove. Of course, all of that will come. We know it will. But the randomness, the beauty of human beings, I don't know if it'll ever be replaced, and nor should it. I feel like we're at a wonderful time where we have all this modern technology. And it's all about our ears, how we choose to use it. Maybe it will save us time to get an idea down that we can then perfect later. It's one great thing about virtual. And dare I say AI. I know it's going to cause World War III just to say those two letters. Rambling answer, and the rambling answer, the short answer is, virtual instruments are wonderful when you're sitting on your own and you want to access all of the sounds of instruments that you cannot play or you do not have at your fingertips. But nothing will ever beat human beings interacting together and creating amazing music. And I don't expect that ever to be taken away, and I will keep championing it, and I'm excited to hear people perform and write and record music together. Great question.
How in the heck do I learn groove or feel?
It's that week, isn't it? Eric's picking these questions, so he likes to just throw curveballs at me. How do you learn groove or feel? Well, if you watched, I've done a couple of shorts recently where we were talking about production, and we just put out a course talking about production, where we produced a band, Blossom, in Limoux in France, and I showed people how I love referencing great music. And so I would say listen to a lot of incredible music. Listen to music which is held up as being the best grooving, feeling tracks of all time. Listen to Elmore James. Listen to Stevie Wonder. Listen to Marvin Gaye. Listen to a lot of blues. Listen to a lot of jazz. Listen to a lot of soul. Listen to a lot of R&B, and listen to a lot of funk. And just play along with it, try and sit in those pockets. Then listen to the bands that were influenced by that. Listen to the Zeppelins, Listen to Deep Purple. Listen to like the early rock bands that took blues and morphed it into what we start to call heavy rock. Just get absorbed into what makes music feel fantastic. I mean, you can't get better than listening to like Marcus Miller or Bootsy at his finest. And if you want to get a little bit more technical but still have groove and feel, listen to Jarko. You know, those are some of the greatest bass players. And there's so much amazing music. James Brown. Oh, James Brown. Go back. Listen to Stevie Wonder, Stevie Wonder, Stevie Wonder. Listen to Talking Book and Inner Visions and Songs in the Key of Life. Listen to the Meters. Listen to Zigaboo's Groove. Oh, growing up in the UK, I loved all the classic bands, the rock bands that I was surrounded by. Queen, obviously. But all of the music that we look to for feel and for groove was all African American, Black American music. It's just phenomenal for that. Absolutely phenomenal. If you want to know about feel and groove, that's where you go. Now, don't get me wrong. Allman Brothers had it in spades as well, but look at Dwayne. You know, he went to Muscle Shoals so he could get involved in that scene and figure out what was going on. So do that. Be Dwayne Allman. Go to the source of the great music. Go to soul, go to blues, go to R&B, go to jazz, go to funk. Absorb it all in and create great music. That's where you get the groove. That's where you get the feel from. Oh, and Bob Marley. Bob Marley, Bob Marley, and Bob Marley. Go listen to Could You Be Loved? Oh, that's groove. That's feel.
When mixing, do you prefer clip gain or automation?
Oh, both really. I'll reach for either. Clip gain is a sort of more modern approach. When I first started off mixing vocals, I would, use volume automation to hit the bus consistently, so my compression was not like choking and was just getting it nicely. But clip gain does amazing things, and also, frankly, it's a visual cue. You can sit there and you can see how much you want to increase it. And that is not a bad thing when it comes to hitting with even compression. So if you have clip gain available in your DAW, the ability to turn the actual waveform up and down like this, that is not a bad tool. That's a great tool. If you're just dealing with automation, great. Just automate words so that they are consistently loud enough and sit in your track beautifully without the need for having to overly compress other louder words so they sound choked.
What is the difference between gain, trim, and then the volume fader?
That's a really good question. And I think one of the difficulties in answering this is that gain is often called trim is often called gain, and volume is often called gain and trim. So here is one explanation which will be argued and disagreed with down below. So have at it, get going. Okay, so when I think of a channel console, I think of the initial pot at the top of the console as the gain control. Then the trim would probably adjust, pull that back. So if the gain was going into the preamp, then I would trim the output. Then a volume fader would be the last thing on the list. So gain, trim, volume. Now, like I said, that is typically what I would say, but I've seen trim be a gain. I've seen gain be the output volume, and I've seen all other versions. The reality is you've got to see where it is on context. I'm looking around here and I'm seeing so many devices with, like, here's an input volume. Over here on the console, there is a mic line gain control. There is a fader here, which I suppose would be your volume fader, but there is no specific trim. Well, here I've got an Orbit and it's got a trim control. So basically, trim, you would imagine, is actually turning down the signal. So if I have a gain going through and I set the gain, the trim is trimming it. It's reducing it. So maybe it's just a little bit too loud, so it's pulling it back a little bit, and then the volume at the end. That's what you would expect trim to mean. Like I said, I've seen trim used as a replacement for gain. I've got an output volume here on a BAE and an input gain, a threshold on a DBX 165 with an output gain, but no trim control. So output gain, you know what I mean? Because that's a fixed threshold compressor. So that's why you're asking the question, and that's why the answer is really confusing. But to reiterate, what I would expect it to be is gain going into a device, trim to control it back a bit, and then volume overall at the very end. And that is typically what most people will answer as being the right thing. It is unfortunately confusing and probably why you're asking the question, because the words gain, trim, and volume get interchanged all the time to mean different things in different situations. And I apologize for all gear manufacturers in the world for that confusion. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this week's Fact Friday. That was quite a fun one. Check out all those band references. Let's see if we can put some links down there, especially the Meters and Stevie Wonder, and Bob Marley, and James Brown, and so many, Funkadelic, and Parliament, and so much great groove stuff. It's coming out the ears. All right, thanks everyone. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, ciao, goodbye.